Upfront disclaimers. This is a spoiler review of the 2005 Yakuza game, played with the excellent Yakuza Restore patch by Silverhan, which gives the game its Japanese dub and retranslates a significant chunk of the game. I have a lot of love for the English dub of this game. I miss the days when localizers would take wild, weird swings with games. From this era where Grand Theft Auto was the biggest game in the world, and everyone's instinct in response was to create this weird mix of Hollywood prestige and 90s indie edge. Michael Madsen's involvement mandatory. But at heart, I do firmly believe that Yakuza is a distinctly Japanese game, best experienced with its performances and incidental audio in the Japanese language. Since almost every other game in this series exclusively features a Japanese dub, I felt that for consistency and atmosphere, Yakuza Restore would be an essential part of my experience with this game. If you are weary about the English dub, don't want the transition from this game to later ones to be as jarring, or just need an excuse to revisit this game, I highly recommend giving Yakuza Restored a shot. Plug over, on with the review. The first shot of 2005's Yakuza focuses on a random beating in an alleyway. We cut to Kiryu's introduction, standing with a revolver above a dead body inside the dark backroom office as a lightning storm rages outside. His adventure will see him team up with an old-school trenchcoat wearing detective on a journey to solve a murder and a money theft, but also to protect a young girl caught in the crossfire of a massive mafia war. Yakuza's noir inspiration is everywhere in this game, which I think stands out because the series hasn't been one to heavily indulge in itself in a slightly fantastical art or presentation style. Like a Dragon was pure naturalism. Its scenes were lit, shot and staged like real people walked into a room to start a conversation. In Yakuza, Selena's is bathed in warm reds and wooden tones, first and foremost because it contrasts itself with the cold dark blues of the outdoors. This world is perpetually either nighttime or in overcast. Sunlight doesn't shine through until the ending. It's certainly helped by being a PS2 game, an era marked by its standard definition meets realism aesthetics, as well as grungy urban settings. Yakuza represents one of the prettiest games from this era for the art style, as it holds up incredibly well. This game's probable biggest strength is the consistency and flair of its visual presentation, and how intertwined with the world setting that it is. In my Like a Dragon review, one of the comments was that I felt the world was lacking a bit of edge, that despite these red light districts being places that are supposed to be on the edge of society, it lacks any kind of visual darkness or danger. By contrast, that kind of edge is everywhere in Yakuza's Kamurocho. This game just has a consistent polish and production quality that's a step above that game. Look, the car scenes actually have other traffic on the road. To move away from the graphics, I think it's a highly underrated part of this game is its side missions and activities. I think most fans highly prefer the newer, more varied, expressive stories told in later games on this topic. For Yakuza, however, it's perfect. Every side mission in this game features somebody trying to either scam or kill you. It's not the most diverse set of side content, but it just reinforces how dangerous Kamurocho is meant to be. Gamified combat encounters are no longer your only real threat. You are now looking out for people trying to drug you, scam someone else, assassinate you by proxy, assassinate themselves, kidnap your friends. That isn't to say that there's no wholesome moments to be had. The painting side mission has a really nice touch where the completion text tells you that the painter went on to become famous, a nice ideal I wish more sub-stories did. But the upside of all of this, the graphics, the gameplay, is that Kamurocho actually does feel dangerous. The immersion factor of this game is incredible, and a perfect demonstration of graphics and gameplay working together. Yakuza is a very small, focused game by series standards, and that is also expressed through the minigames. We have a selection of gambling options, the Hostess Club, the Buying Centre, and the Colosseum. That's about it. While this certainly means that this isn't a game you can spend hours just doing random stuff in, there is an upside here as well. I think the side content synergizes with the main story really well. What side things do exist almost always connect to a side mission or something in the main story. It helps prevent the content from feeling too disconnected, which is a massive plus in making this game more immersive and atmospheric. The heavy focus on gambling in secret casinos certainly helps this game pull off its dingy red light district vibes. For other immersion points, I like that the side missions aren't marked on the map, makes these encounters really feel random and grounded in a way that the more gamified system of Like a Dragon isn't. The Haruka everywhere mechanic is also a nice little thing to tie the side content into the game's main narrative driving character relationship. It's basic enough to easily engage with while not being tedious. I adore how Haruka can trip over while running around. I don't know if this is something that's been documented anywhere, but she can trip over and it's hilariously cute. This game doesn't have the completion checklists that are common in later games. That is a very good thing. I like how completing the batting centre is based on a submission, not a request to get 200 home runs. It once again reinforces that these are meant to be recreational options for Kiryu, and helps to prevent these things from distracting you from the pacing of the main narrative. Unlike Ichiban, I actually do believe that this is where Kiryu hangs out during the story's quieter moments. Okay, the big flaw in this game's side content. Things can be missed and become incomplete, and this is very easy to do. Think you can give this kid a bento later? Nope. Want to discover the mystery of fake Yumi's sister? Decide to randomly talk to the florist, and don't you dare talk to Date as you walk past him. It does suck, and something that effectively requires a guide if you want to get that 100% completion. This game sadly doesn't have much documentation out there, so shout out to these game facts guides. Combat in this game is stiff. That's in terms of gameplay certainly. The controls were still in work of progress, and the regular action is likely most let down by the absence of a really accessible crowd control option. This is the first beat-em-up Yakuza game I've played in full, so I don't think these flaws are as bad as someone that is coming from this as a history lesson, but it is something to keep in mind. Combat is also stiff in its simplicity and brutality. The heavily choreographed and stylish heat actions are nowhere to be seen in this game. Fitting the grungy atmosphere, this is a world where stomping on someone's heads will put them down. The simplicity of the combat and the finishing moves, plus its close relationship to both the Colosseum and Sotamo's training to provide the in-universe justification for Kiryu's improving skills, really fits this game. You can still tell that the creators wanted to still include some more stylish choreographed action too, but it's very much the exception rather than the rule. Everyone knows the waiter, but Kiryu launching this guy out of Selena's or knowingly crushing this guy on his way to rescue Date always gets a laugh out of me. Overall, combating Yakuza will obviously get a lot better as soon as the next entry, but it's a core part of this game's overall identity. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about playing this game with the sequel's combat system as the HD collection does for that reason. Now for story analysis, and for describe the game's story in one sentence challenge. After spending 10 years in the joint taking the fall for a murder, Kiryu is caught up in the mystery of a missing cache of 10 billion yen and the young girl who may be the key to its secret. Something important to note about the story of Yakuza. It shares a lot of plot beats with Like a Dragon. Going to prison to take the fall for a murder, the real murderer being the main villain, a dark side of the protagonist figure. A homeless camp, a secret surveillance network, Yokohama, a mysterious stash of illegitimate money, a politician manipulating the Yakuza for his own ends. He even dies the same way. Like a Dragon is not a retelling of Yakuza, but the shared elements I think is an intentional decision, and one that makes it possible to compare storytelling philosophies. For a mini sidetrack, after the mediocrity of the Like a Dragon soundtrack, I'm proud to state that this game does a lot better. The game doesn't have a ton of music, notably most bosses lack unique tracks. But what it does have is good across the board. The game doesn't end with an out-of-place rap song about how cool Kiryu is, it ends with amazing grace, instant improvement. Elsewhere, we get a coherent selection of metal-infused electronica for the battle themes. The incidental and quieter music for the city scenes all fit their context. Many scenes don't even have music, just letting the scene's ambience provide the atmosphere. For those scenes, I was also impressed by how strong this game's cinematography and character animation is. The facial animations may be stiff, but it's noteworthy how much expression they manage to get out of body and eye movements regardless. Rather than sit-down conversations like a dragon loves, there's a lot of dynamism to even very basic expositional conversations here. It's all very good stuff. The heart of this game is undoubtedly the trio of Kiryu, Haruka and Date. Every scene with a combination of these characters is gold, which is a good thing because there's a lot. I can't get enough of these three. The game's story has a noticeably episodic vibe to it, which is a mixed bag. On the negative, it does mean that the very simple core story does get lost in the mix a bit. The missing money, which should be an easy excuse to get a whole bunch of competing factions fighting over it in a battle royale, is a kind of non-factor between its introduction and the ending. Majima and Liu Kang don't care about it, it's all part of Nishiki and Jingu's plan. Within this specific game, it does also mean that Nishiki's character arc isn't quite as fleshed out as it could be. This point obviously does get addressed in Kiwami, but the game's story structure still means that Nishiki's redemption arc needs to happen in the span of about a minute. With the foresight that Zero and even Kiwami would do a lot to give a lot of depth to Nishiki's character journey of an always second best Yakuza grunt with big ambitions falling to the dark side to chase them, I probably would have had Nishiki's defeat be an Act 2 event, letting Act 3 be his redemption. He is still a fantastic main villain for this game regardless. A corruption of Kiryu who is clearly hiding a lot of resentment and insecurity behind his tough patriarch facade. The rest of the game's cast isn't quite as in-depth. I can see why among the minor villains, Majima became the breakout star. I won't say that I love his portrayal here, but he brings a lot of energy that Liu Kang and Jingu lack. I think the standout here is actually Shimano. He has an imposing and charismatic presence and a pair of memorable boss fights to back it up. Maybe there's something refreshing about how this game's secondary antagonist ensemble are a bunch of unpretentious bad guys. It is certainly in character for the gritty, stripped down vibe that Yakuza is going for, and I respect it for that. That overall is my take on the game that started it all. I am someone that often loves the first entries in franchises, since I think there's something fascinatingly pure about seeing the most basic, distilled version of a series formula. Yakuza's gameplay is rough around the edges, but makes up for that with a devotion to narrative and environmental detail. I could see why this game started a series that is now almost 2 decades strong. It's aged very well and I still recommend checking it out today. Going forward, I will be ranking the games on this tier list. By default, Like a Dragon will go in B for baseline tier. It may not stay there permanently, but for now I will be judging games based on how they stack up against my entry point for the series. With that in mind, Yakuza is a strong A tier. If the game had better polish in terms of combat and side content, it would be an easy S. I love this game, some of the best scene setting and atmosphere work in any game ever. If nothing else, this game deserves to be remembered for that. To see how this list grows and evolves, subscribe and stay tuned. Up next we'll be jumping straight into Yakuza 2, peacocks and all. Thank you for watching.